Welcome. Tonight, as the world around you begins to quiet and the light from the day fades into shadows, you've arrived here in this soft moment. Just you, your breath, and the gentle glow of stillness. Perhaps there's a candle flickering nearby, or the soft hum of night sounds outside your window. Maybe you're wrapped in a blanket, lying down, or just settling in. Wherever you are, this space is yours now. A space where there is no pressure, no expectation, and no need to be anything other than what you already are. Just take a deep breath with me. In through your nose and out. Slow and steady. Again. And let yourself begin to arrive, not just in this moment, but within yourself. So many of us carry a question that sits quietly behind our daily lives. Why does my heart hurt even when I try so hard to be okay? Why does suffering seem to follow us, even when we've done everything we can to let it go? We read, we meditate, we whisper affirmations to ourselves in the dark, and yet, sometimes the pain doesn't leave. In fact, the more we try to force it away, the heavier it seems to become. That is the quiet paradox of suffering. When we fight it, it tightens its grip. But when we learn to sit beside it, to observe it with kindness, something begins to soften. Something begins to shift. And here's something I want to remind you of tonight. Softly, like a friend. You don't have to be perfect to deserve peace. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be enlightened or strong or always calm. You are enough, exactly as you are, to receive rest, to feel safe, to begin healing. The teachings you're about to hear tonight aren't instructions to fix yourself. They are gentle offerings. They are reminders from the Buddhist path that suffering is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is part of the human experience. And within that experience, there is wisdom. There is compassion. And yes, there is the possibility of release. This journey tonight is not something you need to try hard for. There's nothing to achieve here, and no right way to listen. Just be here. Allow yourself to be gently carried. Let the rhythm of the words, the quiet lessons of Zen Buddhism, and the presence of this moment accompany you like a soft hand in the dark. As you listen, something inside you may begin to exhale, to rest, to let go without even trying. This is a form of meditation you don't even need to think about. Simply by being here, you are already practicing, already transforming, even in silence. So welcome, truly. Whether you're listening from New York or Tokyo, from a quiet room in San Francisco, or a hidden corner of rural France, you are not alone. Others are here too, in their own darkness, finding peace in this shared moment. If you feel moved to, let us know where you're listening from tonight in the comments. You never know who you might comfort just by being present. And now, together, let's gently step into the night's journey. A journey guided by the most compassionate teachings of the Buddha, not to fight suffering, but to understand it, and through that understanding, to finally begin letting go. Now, let's begin. Vanessa was 35 years old and had spent most of her adult life caring for the elderly. She worked at a small hospice center just outside the city, where the walls whispered stories of people near the end of their lives. Some had families who visited daily. Others had no one. But all of them, sooner or later, left. And each time they did, a part of her went with them. She hadn't realized how heavy it had become. The weight of holding so many final goodbyes. The gentle smiles, the trembling hands she held, the quiet last breaths they added up over time. Quietly, go. Like soft rain filling a bucket she didn't know she was carrying. Now, on this quiet morning, she sat alone at the edge of a nearly empty train station. It was just past 5 a.m. Mum. The sky was still gray, the platform damp with dew. A thin mist curled along the tracks, and the only sound was the distant hum of an approaching train. She was supposed to be going somewhere, but she had stopped here, not because it was her destination, but because something in her had stopped moving. Her fingers gripped the paper cup of lukewarm coffee as if it could anchor her. She stared down the tracks, not really seeing them. She didn't know why she felt so lost today, more than usual. Maybe it was the woman from last night, Eleanor, who had slipped away in her sleep. Vanessa had been there, just like always. She'd whispered soft words, wiped Eleanor's brow, stayed until the end, but afterward, instead of peace, there was only a strange hollowness. Like even the comfort she once found in this work had faded. She felt untethered, like a balloon cut from its string. Was any of it helping anyone? Did her presence matter? What was the point of offering comfort? If death came all the same, she didn't want to feel this way. She wanted to believe again in her work, in the simple beauty of showing up for someone, but sitting there at the cold train station, with morning light still hiding behind the clouds. She wasn't sure what she believed anymore, and that scared her more than anything else. The bench felt colder than she remembered. Vanessa shifted slightly, trying to find warmth in her coat. But it wasn't the wind that chilled her. It was the ache inside. The silence of the station stretched wide, broken only by the low whistle of a train approaching from somewhere far away. She wasn't even sure if she would get on it. Then, almost unnoticed, someone sat beside her. A woman Old, very old, with a gentle slope to her shoulders and hands that trembled just enough to be tender. She wore a knitted shawl and held nothing but a small cloth bag on her lap. Her eyes were soft but alert, like someone who had watched the world a long time and no longer needed it to change. They didn't speak at first. Vanessa kept her gaze forward. The woman simply sat, breathing, being. The stillness between them was both uncomfortable and comforting. Vanessa didn't know why, but she didn't want to move. And then, without turning her head, the woman spoke. "Death," she said quietly, "teaches us that every breath is a gift." Vanessa blinked. She turned to look at the woman, who was now watching the slow bloom of dawn behind the train tracks. The words weren't said to impress. They didn't demand a reply. They were just placed gently into the space between them, like a warm stone in cold hands. Something in Vanessa's chest shifted, just slightly. She wanted to ask what the woman meant, or how she could sound so sure. But instead, she just breathed in and out. And for a moment, it felt different. The woman smiled faintly, as if she knew what Vanessa was feeling without needing to ask. Then the sound of the train grew louder. The old woman stood, slowly, with grace. She nodded once and walked toward the platform's edge. Vanessa stayed seated, but in the stillness she left behind, there was something new. Not an answer, not a solution, just a whisper inside her chest. That maybe she didn't have to hold it all. Not alone. Vanessa stayed seated on the quiet bench as morning unfolded around her. The soft gold of dawn gently warming the edges of the platform, touching the rails like a memory returning. Not loud, not sudden, just there. The woman's words lingered, not as noise, but as stillness. Every breath is a gift. Vanessa closed her eyes. In the calm behind her lids, names and faces began to return. One by one, James, whose hands trembled, but whose smile never faded. Maria, who gripped her fingers like a lifeline and whispered thank you through fading breath. The old man who passed like a candle going out, silent and small. She had been there through all of it, sitting beside them, holding their hands, wiping their foreheads, saying goodbye so many times, in so many ways. Each time, something in her heart had curled tighter, as if holding on could keep them longer, as if to let go was to forget. But here, in the still light of early morning, something softened. She was not meant to carry them. She was meant to be with them. And she had. That was enough. Their leaving wasn't hers to control. Their passing wasn't hers to own. It was part of life, of love, of what it means to care. A small bird landed on the steel rail in front of her. Its feathers puffed against the breeze. It stayed for a moment, then lifted off, quiet and sure, like a breath released. Vanessa opened her hands on her lap. Slowly. The ache was still there. But so was the sky. So was this moment. So was this breath. Letting go is not giving up. She heard within herself. It's returning to the present. She let the words repeat. Soft, like prayer. Letting go is not giving up. It's coming home now. Her hand moved to her chest. She felt her own heartbeat. Alive. Steady. Here, there would still be sorrow. There would still be moments of helplessness. But she no longer had to meet them with tightness. She could meet them with breath, with presence, with love, not control. Behind her, the train released a gentle sigh of steam. She did not rise. She simply breathed, and it was enough. Vanessa is a caregiver who has witnessed many final goodbyes. Yet it was not until a quiet morning at the train station, after a conversation with a 92-year-old woman, that she began to see each farewell, not as an ending, but as a moment to return to life itself. Now, let's go there with her. In your mind, picture the station at dawn. The air is cool and calm. The sky is painted in soft colors, pale gold, silver blue, a hint of rose. There are no crowds here, just silence. In space, the platform stretches wide and empty. The metal rails glimmer faintly beneath the first light of day. You are seated on a simple wooden bench. No rush, no schedule. You are not waiting for anything. You are simply here. Feel the weight of your body resting on the bench. Notice how your hands lie quietly in your lap. Gently bring your attention to your breath. No need to change it. Just notice it. The air coming in, the air going out. The sound of a train in the distance begins to rise. It's soft, steady, like a whisper from far away. In your imagination, see the train glide into view. It slows as it arrives. The cars shining in the early morning light. Then it pauses. The doors open. But you do not need to get on. This is not your train. This train carries a memory, a worry, an old sadness you've been holding. With your next breath out, let that go. Breathe it out like a gentle goodbye, and watch the train leave. Slowly, quietly, boy. It moves away. No need to hold on. No need to follow. Just breathe. Another train comes. This one brings a thought, a face, a moment from your past. Maybe it stirs something in your chest. That's okay. Let it come. See it clearly. And as the doors open, let your body soften. As you breathe out, let it go too. Just for now. Just enough to make space. You don't need to hold the train. Just breathe. The sky grows brighter. Light spreads across the tracks. A bird calls somewhere in the distance. In this soft space, you begin to see that each breath is like a train, arriving and leaving. Each one bringing something, and each one asking nothing but your presence. Inhale. Welcome to this moment. Exhale. Say goodbye with kindness. Again, inhale and exhale. Like the rhythm of the rails, let your breath move through you like the morning wind through the trees. Soft, gentle, free. No gripping, no chasing. The past has its place. The future will come in its time. But now, you are just breathing. You are sitting quietly at a station where nothing must be forced, where even the deepest sorrow can pass without breaking you, where love remains, even as things leave. Let yourself stay here a little longer, breathing, noticing, softening. If thoughts come, let them pass like trains. If emotions rise, meet them gently, then watch them fade down the track. You are not the train. You are the sky it moves beneath. Open, spacious, alive, and still. You don't need to hold the train. Just breathe. Vanessa, who once carried the weight of every goodbye, now steps quietly into the nursing home with a softer heart. The hallway is the same. The scent of morning coffee still lingers, but something inside her has changed. She no longer moves with the heaviness of fear or the tight grip of resistance. Instead, she walks as if each step is a quiet honoring of life, just as it is. She stops by the window near room 12, where a woman named Helen usually sits watching the clouds. Vanessa doesn't rush in. She stands there for a moment, letting the morning light touch her face. Her breath is slow, deep. The memory of the old woman's words still lives in her chest. Death teaches us that every breath is a gift. And now, Vanessa doesn't try to fix what cannot be fixed. She doesn't try to outrun what is already part of life. She simply returns to presence. Again and again, each patient she meets with eyes that say, "I'm here," instead of, "Please don't go." She understands now that love doesn't mean holding on so tightly. Love, real love, is presence. It is a touch on the hand, a shared smile, a quiet goodbye that doesn't fight. She watches a new resident arrive with trembling steps and greets him not with answers, but with space. Space for his fear, space for his grief, space for all the things she used to try to erase. There is no dramatic transformation, no triumphant ending, just softening, just a return. The world still turns, people still pass, the body still fades. But Vanessa now sees each breath as something sacred, a reminder that life is not about control, but about receiving. And when she sits alone in the break room, sipping tea as the sun rises, she gently asks herself, can you allow life to move without holding so tight? And the answer, for the first time, feels like peace. There is a quiet kind of exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from holding on too tightly. We try to manage every detail, plan every outcome, shape every emotion into something neat and manageable. We try to be the strong one, the calm one, the one who always knows what to do. We carry a mental checklist at all times, fixing this, controlling that, keeping it all together. Even our thoughts become tight. Even our breathing feels shallow. And yet, underneath all that effort, there is a longing to stop, a longing to exhale. But we don't let ourselves. We tell ourselves that if we stop, everything will fall apart. If we rest, we'll lose ground. If we don't stay in control, something will slip through our fingers. So we keep going. We grip harder. We try to manage people, outcomes, feelings, even time itself. But somewhere along the way, we start to feel like we're disappearing, like we're spending all our energy holding up walls that no longer need to be held. And the question arises, softly, gently, what if letting go doesn't mean giving up, but finally resting? What if there is a way to stop without falling? A way to release without losing who we are? Maybe letting go isn't a weakness. Maybe it's wisdom. Maybe it's the moment we finally realize we were never meant to control everything. We were meant to feel, to trust, to breathe, and maybe to rest. When we begin to feel how heavy everything has become, it helps to ask, what am I holding that was never mine to carry? In Buddhist teaching, the idea of letting go is not about giving up. It is not about turning cold or walking away from life. Letting go means softening. It means opening our hands, our hearts, and our expectations. It means allowing things to be as they are, even when they are not what we hope for. The Buddha said, "Let go of what is not yours to carry." And in this simple teaching is great peace. We often carry other people's pain, their judgments, their choices. We carry old versions of ourselves that no longer fit. We carry the past, trying to change it. We carry the future, trying to control it. But when we try to hold everything, we leave no room for life to move naturally. Letting go is not about walking away. It's about staying present. Without the fight, it is trusting that we can meet each moment with care, without needing to force it. It is knowing that love does not require control. That peace does not grow from fear. That sometimes the kindest thing we can do for ourselves is to stop gripping so hard. When we release what does not serve us, we begin to feel space again. Space to breathe. Space to see clearly. Space to live. Not as a reaction, but as a gentle response. Not with tension, but with trust. Now that you've understood the meaning of letting go, let's feel it with your body and your breath. Close your eyes if you'd like, or simply soften your gaze. Take a gentle breath in and slowly breathe out. Let your shoulders drop just a little. Let your jaw loosen. Let your hands rest naturally. You don't have to do anything right now. Just allow yourself to be. Now, imagine you are sitting in a small wooden boat. The sky above you is soft and open. The lake around you is quiet, like glass. For a while, you were rowing gently, steadily, trying to steer, trying to move forward, maybe even trying to fight the current. But now, you place the oars beside you. You stop rowing. The boat does not sink. The world does not fall apart. It simply drifts. Quietly, calmly, slowly. There is no need to force anything. Just notice how it feels to be carried. Now, bring your attention to your hands. Imagine you're holding something there. It could be a stone, a memory, a worry, a name, a weight you've been carrying, perhaps without even realizing. Notice how tightly your fingers wrap around it. Notice the tension in your hand, in your wrist, in your arm. And now, slowly, gently, imagine your hand opening, finger by finger. No rush, no judgment, just a soft release. The object slips from your palm. It doesn't break. It doesn't make a sound. It simply falls like a feather, like a leaf, drifting down until it disappears. Stay with that feeling. The moment after you let go, the way your hand feels now, empty, but light, still, but soft. There is a peace that lives in that space, a kind of freedom that only comes when we stop grasping. Not because we don't care, but because we care more about peace than perfection, more about love than control, more about presence than performance. Now, take a breath again, a breath that belongs only to you. Feel it move in, feel it leave gently. Let yourself be held by the rhythm. Nothing to fix, nothing to chase. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are just here, in this quiet moment, learning to soften, learning to release, learning to trust. The boat keeps drifting. The sky remains wide, and your hands, now free, rest by your side. As you return to the rhythm of your everyday life, remember that letting go isn't only something we do in stillness. It's something we can practice in the small, quiet choices of each day. You don't need to change everything overnight. You don't have to let go of the biggest weight all at once. Sometimes, peace begins with a single, soft release. Something small, something doable. So maybe tomorrow, you let one plan be imperfect. Maybe the meal doesn't have to be just right. Maybe the meeting doesn't have to be flawless. Let it be good enough. Let it be human. Or maybe you let go of the need to be understood. Perhaps someone misunderstood your words, or didn't reply, or didn't say sorry. You can still choose peace. You can still breathe. You can still rest without needing to control how others respond. Or perhaps you simply notice a difficult feeling when it shows up. The tightness in your chest, the heat in your stomach, the restless thoughts. And instead of fighting them, you breathe with them. Just for a moment, you soften your shoulders. You say to yourself, "This is here. I can feel this and still be okay." Letting go doesn't always look like a grand gesture. Often, it's quiet. Often, no one else even sees it. But your body feels it. Your breath feels it. Your heart feels it. And slowly, those small releases become a way of life, a gentle path, a healing rhythm. So tonight, as you rest, let yourself imagine one small thing you can release tomorrow. One grip you can loosen. One breath you can soften. And trust that peace is always closer than it seems. Carla was 36 years old and had been baking since she was 19. In a quiet little town where everyone knew the smell of her sourdough and the way she wrote tiny notes on each paper bag. Have a soft morning or still here. Still rising. But no one really knew what had broken inside her last winter. Not even Carla herself. Her younger brother, Matteo, had died suddenly in a car accident just outside town. It happened on a rainy evening. They had argued on the phone the night before, and that was the last time she heard his voice. She had said things she didn't mean. He had hung up too fast. And just like that, he was gone. now. Every morning at 3:07 a.m., she enters her little kitchen under a warm yellow light. Hands cold, breath steady, heart not quite whole. The oven clicked on like it always did, humming quietly behind her. Flour dusted the counters. The bowl waited, and so did the guilt, soft and silent like a fog that never left. She moved like muscle memory, kneading dough, measuring salt, brushing pastries with milk and care. But inside, something stayed frozen. Sometimes she thought she heard him, Mateo, laughing, teasing her about how she always burnt the first tray. She would pause, close her eyes, but when she opened them, it was just the sound of rising bread and the ticking of the old kitchen clock. She didn't cry anymore. Not really. But there was an ache in her chest that never softened. And in the quiet before sunrise, when no one else was awake, Carla would often whisper, "I'm sorry." Not to the bread, not to the oven, but to the space between things, to the air where he used to be. They had always been close. He was the kind of brother who danced badly just to make her laugh, who showed up late but always with something warm in his hands. But she had let anger speak that night. She had let tiredness win. And now the silence that followed felt louder than anything she could bake through. Still, every morning, she returned to the light, to the dough, to the warmth, hoping maybe, just maybe, something might rise again. It was a Tuesday, or maybe a Thursday. The days had blurred into each other lately. Carla stood in her little bakery kitchen at 3:41 a.m., hands sunk deep into soft dough, the scent of cinnamon beginning to rise behind her. The room was warm, filled with the hush of the early morning, that quiet hum that only exists before the world fully wakes. The oven crackled softly in the background, its old metal sides expanding with tiny, rhythmic pops, like gentle footsteps in another room. She was halfway through her third batch when it happened. Her hand stopped moving, fingers stilled in the dough. Something inside her went very still. And then, without warning, she let go. Her shoulders slumped. Her arms hung limp. And she wept. Not the kind of crying you can hide. The kind that takes your whole body with it. The kind that has been waiting for too long. Her sobs echoed softly against the tiled walls, blending with the ticking of the clock and the warm pings of the oven. For the first time in months, she didn't try to quiet them. She didn't wipe her face or tell herself to be strong. She just allowed it. And as she stood there, a quiet thought passed through her like a breeze through a half-open window. The words weren't loud. They didn't come from her mind. They arrived from somewhere softer, deeper. When your heart softens, the soul can return. It wasn't a lesson she had read. It wasn't something anyone had said out loud. But somehow, she knew. She felt it in the space around her, in the warmth of the room, in the steady flickers of the oven fire. Matteo wasn't angry. He wasn't holding on to that last conversation like she was. He was here, in the pause, in the breath, in the silence that wrapped around her now like a soft blanket. She stayed there for a long time, not moving, not baking, just breathing, letting her heart stretch open, slowly, like dough rising in the morning light. Something had shifted. Not everything was healed, but something had changed. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. For now, Carla had always been the older sister, the caretaker, the one who fixed things when they fell apart. But no one had ever told her how to fix a broken heart. After the morning, she cried in the kitchen. Something inside her began to move again. Not in a loud or dramatic way, but like a tide shifting far beneath the surface. She returned to her routine the next day. Rolling dough, measuring flour, wiping the counters. But it was different now. There was a softness in her touch, a quiet listening in her breath. As she kneaded the dough, she found herself pausing between movements, noticing how her hands moved, how the air felt on her skin, how each motion carried a quiet memory of her brother. Matteo had loved mornings like this. He used to sit at the counter, sleepy-eyed, teasing her about using too much nutmeg. Carla smiled without realizing it, then felt tears rise again. But this time, they didn't feel sharp. They came with warmth, with presence, with a sense that maybe he wasn't gone in the way she feared. Maybe he was folded into the light, the air, the breath between each motion. And then came the forgiveness. It wasn't sudden. It didn't come from thinking. It came from feeling, from stillness, from holding her own tired heart in the same way she had once held Matteo's hand when he was small. She saw herself, the version of her who had said that harsh word, who hadn't answered the last message, not as someone to blame, but as someone who had been hurting, just like everyone else. She didn't excuse it. She didn't erase it. She just let it be human. She whispered softly to herself, "I'm sorry." I didn't know how. The words settled into the room like flour drifting through the air. She remembered a line she had once heard from a Buddhist teaching. One she hadn't understood back then, but now felt true in her bones. All things are impermanent. Knowing this, we can love more deeply. She repeated it silently, again and again. The bread rose quietly in the oven behind her. And for the first time in a long while, so did her breath. So did her heart. Let's sit together. In the quiet morning kitchen, the world is still. The light is gentle, and everything you need is already here. Take a slow breath in and let it fall out softly. Feel the way your body settles. Feel the ground beneath you. Feel the silence wrap around you like a warm apron. Now imagine your hands resting gently on a ball of dough. It is soft, cool at first, and slightly sticky. Your palms begin to press. Slowly, patiently. This is not a task to finish. It is simply a place to arrive. Each movement becomes its own breath. Fold, press, turn, breathe. Feel the gentle resistance of the dough pushing back. Feel how it yields. Slowly, like the heart when held with care. Let your shoulders soften as you breathe into this rhythm. No rush, no fixing, just presence. Notice the smell of flour in the air, the warmth beginning to rise from the oven behind you, the quiet hum of something simple and good returning to life. Maybe it has been a long time since you felt this still, since you allowed your breath to move with the moment. Let your hands become your breath, your anchor, your heart, just as they are. There is nothing wrong here, nothing missing, only the slow, rising warmth. And if thoughts appear, let them drift across like morning steam rising from the counter. You don't need to follow them. You don't need to answer. Just return to your hands, your breath, your presence. Even the tired thoughts are welcome here. Even the unfinished feelings. Just notice. Notice if you are holding on or trying to explain something. And without force, loosen that grip. Soften the space. Now bring your attention gently to your body, your feet resting on the floor, the weight of your body being held, your spine quietly lengthening, your chest rising and falling, your arms strong and kind. Feel your whole being here, just here. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but in this tender moment of quiet life, like bread rising slowly under a towel, without needing to prove itself, without hurrying, simply becoming. Whisper softly inside, it's okay to be here, just as I am. Say it again. If it helps, I do not need to be fixed. I only need to be met. Rest in that truth for a while. Feel it warm your center. The way an oven hums quietly before it begins to bake. Something is rising in you too. Quietly. Naturally. When you stop rushing. And now, as we near the end of this stillness, let your mind begin to soften even further, like the folds of dough resting under cloth. No more pressing, no more effort. Just peace, just rest. Let the warmth of this presence carry you now. Let your thoughts go dim like early light. Let your breath slow, as if the body itself is preparing to sleep. Allow yourself to drift away from the kitchen into a deeper stillness, a deeper quiet. Nothing left to do, only to trust that your heart, like the dough, knows how to rise again. Sleep well, dear one. Everything is holding you. Carla is a baker. She rises before the sun, ties her hair back in the quiet dark, and moves through the morning like someone who has known both heaviness and grace. For years, her hands worked dough with the same quiet urgency she used to hold her pain. She had been waiting for apologies that never came, for understanding from people who didn't know how to offer it, for the past to be different than it was. But something shifted. It wasn't loud. It didn't arrive with fireworks or sudden answers. It came quietly, like the rising of bread in a still kitchen. One morning, she simply stopped trying to rewrite what had already happened. She breathed deeper. She moved slower. And without realizing it, her heart softened. Not because the pain disappeared, but because she no longer fought it. Carla still wakes before the sky turns. She still stands at the same wooden counter. The same soft light filters through the window. But inside her, something has changed. She no longer measures her worth by how well she holds everything together. She no longer seeks closure from people who cannot give it. She needs the dough, not to forget, but to remember gently. The past is still there, but it no longer burns. It sits beside her like an old friend who has stopped shouting. Her breath carries her now. Her compassion anchors her. Each morning, the oven hums. The dough rises, and she meets the day with quiet eyes. Can you forgive yourself for the things you didn't know how to hold? Healing is not erasing memory. It is learning to stay with it, with a new heart. A heart that no longer blames. A heart that does not rush to fix. A heart that simply listens. So if your story still aches, if your mornings feel heavy, pause here. Breathe. You do not have to be finished to be free. Like Carla, you can begin again. At the same table, in the same body, but with softer hands and a heart that is finally willing to stay. There are moments when the pain we feel doesn't come from the outside at all, but from the way we speak to ourselves inside. When things go wrong, when someone hurts us, or when we make a mistake, there's a voice that rises quickly, sharp and familiar. It says we should have known better. It says we're too much or not enough. And without even noticing, we turn inward, holding ourselves in blame instead of care. It becomes a habit of this quiet cruelty. We may look calm on the outside, but inside, there's a coldness, like standing alone in a room with no warmth. We replay the moment. We imagine different endings, and in all of them, we're the one at fault. Sometimes, we expect compassion from others, and when it doesn't come, we harden. We react with anger, or silence, or distance. We protect ourselves by closing the door. But the truth is, we close the door on ourselves first, because no one can offer us what we haven't learned to give within. When we don't know how to respond with compassion to our own pain, it becomes easy to react from fear, shame, or habit. We don't mean to be harsh. We're just afraid. Afraid that if we're soft, we'll break. But the heart does not break from softness. It heals from it. So take a moment to pause here and ask gently, when was the last time you looked at your own pain with kindness? Not to fix it, not to hide it, just to be with it. Because maybe what you needed all along wasn't judgment, but presence. Not silence, but warmth. Not strength, but tenderness. Sometimes we think compassion means always being kind to others, always understanding, always forgiving those around us. But in the teachings of Buddhism, compassion begins closer to home. True compassion is not complete if it doesn't include yourself. In Pali, there are two beautiful words, metta and karuna. Metta means loving kindness. It's the gentle wish for others and for yourself to be well, to be safe, to be at peace. And karuna means compassion, the heartfelt response to suffering, the deep desire to ease it, not just in others, but also within your own chest. We often forget this. We give and give, or we expect ourselves to be strong, composed, always okay. But when pain visits us, when shame rises, when old wounds ache again, we push them down. We tell ourselves to get over it, to move on. That's not metta. That's not karuna. The Buddha did not teach compassion as something one-directional. He taught it as a state of being. And you are part of that wholeness. You are not outside of the circle of care. So what does self-compassion look like? It's not indulgence. It's not making excuses. It's the simple act of softening. When everything inside wants to tense up, it's sitting beside your pain as you would sit beside a friend. No advice. No fixing. Just presence. Just breath. And in that stillness, something shifts. The heart starts to thaw. You begin to remember that you too deserve the warmth you offer so easily to others. Let's pause for a moment now and gently shift into a space where your heart can rest. Close your eyes if you like. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw loosen. Let your breath become slow and kind. Imagine now that you are holding yourself, not in thought, but in feeling. Imagine that the part of you that is tired, that has cried silently, that has carried too much for too long, is a small child, not a stranger's child, but yours. She's curled up in your arms now, small and shaking. She doesn't need you to fix anything. She doesn't need words. She just needs to be held. So you hold her with all the love you've learned to give others. You let your arms be steady. You let your breath be her safety. You say softly inside, "I'm here. I'm not leaving you again." And now imagine a candle inside your chest. Its flame is small, but warm. It flickers with every deep breath you take. Around you, the winds of life may blow. Harsh words, regrets, the chill of being misunderstood. But you place both hands gently around that candle. You don't smother it. You shield it. You become its protector. That flame is your kindness toward yourself. No one else can keep it alive for you, but you can, and you are. Let your breath cradle that warmth. Let it spread to your shoulders, your spine, your fingertips. Let it say, even now, especially now, I deserve compassion. The winds will come again, but the flame will stay because now you know how to hold it. Let's bring this quiet understanding back into your everyday life, not as something extra you need to do, but as a way to return to yourself. Whenever you notice that inner tension rising, when you've had a hard day or feel like you've fallen short, just pause. Take a breath. Place one hand gently over your heart. Feel the warmth of your palm, the gentle rise of your chest. You don't need to solve anything right now. You don't need to change how you feel. Just breathe and whisper softly, I'm doing the best I can. Or maybe this too is allowed. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be perfect. Self-compassion isn't a performance. It's a quiet act of truth, a way of saying, I see you, to the parts of you that have been ignored or pushed aside. You can do it while sitting in traffic, while waiting in line, or standing over the sink. You can do it in the middle of the night, lying awake with thoughts that won't stop. Just one hand, one breath, one phrase. That's enough. Kindness toward yourself doesn't need to be loud or grand. It just needs to be real. a soft voice inside that says, I may be struggling, but I still deserve care. And over time, that voice grows stronger, more steady. And when life gets hard again, as it always does, you'll remember. You already know the way back. And now, as your breath grows a little softer and your body begins to settle just a little deeper, let us gently enter the first story of the night. A quiet moment from the life of a woman named Amanda, a mother, a daughter, and someone who, like so many of us, tried so hard to hold everything together. Amanda had always been the strong one. Or at least, that's what she told herself each morning before the sun rose. As she packed lunch for her son, checked her work emails, and tried not to cry in the quiet moments before the world stirred. She was 38, a full-time nurse, a single mother of a sensitive 6-year-old boy, and recently, a daughter mourning the sudden loss of her own mother. For weeks, she had kept going, kept doing, kept showing up with a tight smile and heavy steps, convincing herself that falling apart wasn't an option. There was no time for grief, no space for exhaustion, and no one to hand things off to when everything felt too much. She believed that holding everything together was the only way to prove she was enough, strong enough, capable enough, mother enough. It was late on a Thursday night when Amanda found herself in the fluorescent quiet of a nearly empty supermarket. Her son had finally fallen asleep after a day full of small tantrums and forgotten homework. And she'd promised herself she'd only step out to buy milk and a few things for tomorrow's lunches. The store felt cold and silent. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, but makes the ache inside louder. She stood in front of the same aisle for too long, unable to remember what she came for. Her hands heavy at her sides, her chest tight with something she couldn't name. The lights buzzed above her, distant and pale. And suddenly, it was too much, the weight of all the small things, the loneliness she hadn't admitted, the missing voice of her mother, who used to remind her to breathe. Amanda sank down onto the floor, right there between canned soups and cereal boxes, knees pulled to her chest, breath shallow, heart racing. No one was around. No one to see the woman who always kept it together finally come undone. And for a moment, she let herself be what she had avoided for so long, overwhelmed, tired, lost. It was in that still, fragile space that something began to shift. Not because anything changed on the outside, but because she could finally feel just how much she had been carrying. For a long moment, Amanda just sat there, her back leaning against the cool shelf, her eyes fixed on nothing, her thoughts spinning quietly like leaves caught in the wind. Then she heard footsteps slow, steady, unhurried. A woman, perhaps in her 70s, appeared at the end of the aisle. She wore a simple sweater, loose linen pants, and soft shoes that barely made a sound. Her hair was silver, gathered in a low braid. Her face lined with time but peaceful. Without saying a word, the woman walked over and gently lowered herself onto the floor beside Amanda. She didn't offer help, didn't ask questions, didn't try to fix anything. She simply sat, her presence calm, unshaken, kind. Amanda glanced at her, startled, embarrassed. She wiped at her eyes quickly, tried to sit up straighter, to hide her breaking. But the woman placed a hand lightly on her arm and spoke with a voice as soft as warm tea. "You don't have to be strong all the time," she said. "You only need to be here. Now." The words didn't rush. They floated like falling petals. Amanda didn't know why, but the tears came back, not with force this time, but gently, like something inside had finally been allowed to breathe. The aisle remained quiet. The hum of the lights above became a distant sound. For once, Amanda didn't feel the urge to move, to explain, to prove anything. She just sat, and the woman beside her didn't speak again. She didn't need to. It was enough to be there. Two strangers in the stillness, breathing the same air, sharing the quiet weight of being human. In that silence, something inside Amanda softened. Not everything, not all at once, but a tight knot in her chest loosened. She thought of her mother, of how she used to brush Amanda's hair in the kitchen, humming softly, never needing words to soothe. She thought of how long she'd been trying to hold everything up, and how maybe, just maybe, it was okay to stop, just for now, just for this breath. A Zen teaching she'd once read, buried somewhere in the back of her memory, returned like a whisper. Even in suffering, be present. When you are present, suffering is no longer a burden. Amanda didn't know what would come next, but she closed her eyes for a moment. And in that pause, she simply let herself be. Amanda walked out of the store slowly, the automatic doors sliding open with a soft sigh behind her. The night air was cool against her skin, and for the first time in a long while, she noticed the breeze. Really noticed it. The parking lot was mostly empty, quiet under the glow of the street lamps. Her hands were still trembling slightly, but her chest felt lighter, as if something heavy had been quietly set down. She looked up at the sky, pale clouds drifting across a dark canvas, and she let herself breathe. Not because things were fixed, not because she had figured anything out, but because, in this moment, She didn't have to pretend she was okay. She got into her car and sat there for a while, keys still in her hand. Her thoughts drifted back to the woman, the quiet way she sat, the softness in her eyes, the weightless truth in her words. You don't have to be strong all the time. You only need to be here. Amanda repeated it silently, like a thread she didn't want to lose. Something about those words felt like home, like a language her heart had always known, but forgotten how to speak. Driving home, the roads were mostly empty. The world outside still carried its noise, but inside, something was beginning to settle. She thought of her son, sleeping in his small bed, of all the times she'd snapped at him, not out of anger, but out of sheer exhaustion, of how often she told herself she wasn't doing enough, being enough, and how loud that pressure had become. Always reaching, always striving to hold everything perfectly. But tonight, something shifted. A quiet understanding that maybe being perfect wasn't what he needed most. Maybe what he needed was her, just as she was. Present, gentle, real. A line from the Dhammapada came back to her, soft and steady in her mind. Happiness does not come from control, but from letting go. And in that moment, Amanda understood happiness wasn't something she had to chase. It was something that could arise when she stopped clinging so tightly to being enough. The car pulled into the driveway, and as she stepped out and walked toward the door, Amanda didn't feel completely healed, but she did feel whole. Amanda's story reminds us that even in the quietest places, like a late-night supermarket aisle, healing can begin, not with answers, not with solutions, but with stillness, with one gentle moment of presence. Now, let's gently turn inward, allowing ourselves to touch that same stillness, to rest, to release. Now close your eyes. Let your hands settle softly. Let your shoulders drop just a little. Allow the breath to come as it is. No need to change it. Just feel it arrive and feel it leave. In your mind's eye, imagine a leaf, a simple green leaf resting on a branch after the rain. The storm has passed, and everything around is still. The wind has quieted. The world is wet and hushed. On the tip of this leaf, a single droplet of water clings. It has been holding on for a long time. Heavy, round, trembling at the edge. It does not rush to fall. It just stays there, waiting, breathing. You are that leaf, held in place, still rooted, but with something heavy hanging on. Feel the weight of that droplet. Not painful, just present. a small burden that you've carried quietly, without words. Maybe it is the pressure to be strong, the need to hold it all together. Maybe it is sadness. Maybe it is simply tiredness that has no name. Whatever it is, you don't have to push it away. Just feel it. The droplet does not fall with force. It lets go. Slowly, naturally, pulled only by gravity, by life itself. And when it falls, the leaf feels lighter, not because the storm has disappeared, but because it no longer needs to hold on. Let yourself be the leaf in this moment, and let whatever droplet you've been holding release softly, quietly, with no rush, no effort, just permission. Breathe in gently and breathe out slowly, again and again, like the rhythm of nature after the rain. You are safe here. There is nothing to fix, nothing to prove, only this breath, this moment, this quiet space where you are allowed to simply be, just like Amanda, sitting on that floor, no longer running, no longer pretending, and just like that droplet, when you are ready, let go. In the weeks that followed that quiet night in the supermarket, Amanda didn't suddenly become a different person. She was still a single mother, still working long shifts, still trying to stretch her time and energy across more than she had. But something inside had shifted. She no longer felt the need to be perfect. She no longer believed that holding it all together was the same as loving well. Instead, she began to practice something smaller, quieter, and more real presence. She started by noticing her breath when brushing her son's hair in the morning. She paused before speaking when he spilled milk on the floor. Not always, not perfectly, but more often than before. Sometimes, in the quiet after bedtime, Amanda would sit by the window with a cup of tea and think about her mother. She missed her deeply, but now the missing came with less resistance, less pushing away. It became part of her rhythm, part of her heart. She learned that grief doesn't demand answers. It only asks that we make room for it, gently, without fear. At work, Amanda still faced long days. But even in the rush of tasks and tired patience, she carried a new awareness. She didn't rush through every moment as if peace was waiting on the other side. She learned to breathe in the middle of the noise, to soften her shoulders, to say "I don't know" without shame, and to receive small kindnesses, a smile from a coworker, a shared laugh, the warmth of sunlight through the window, as if they mattered. Because they did, she no longer asked herself how to do it all. Instead, she asked herself how to be with it all. Even the hard parts, even the mess. And in that practice, her heart felt lighter, not empty, but open. Amanda is still on her journey, just like you, and maybe, just like her, you don't need to become someone else to find peace. Maybe you don't need to fix everything before you can rest. Maybe all you need is to be here, right now. So ask yourself, gently, can you allow yourself to just be? Even in the middle of everything, so many of us move through life with a quiet heaviness we can't quite name. A kind of invisible weight that clings to our chest or settles behind our eyes. And we tell ourselves it's just a bad day or that we're simply tired. Nothing more. And so we keep going, pushing forward. Because there's work to do, people to take care of, responsibilities that don't wait for rest. Over time, this quiet ache becomes familiar, almost ordinary, and we learn to function with it, even laugh and love with it, while somewhere deep inside we feel distant, numb, or strangely hollow. It doesn't look like suffering the way we imagine. No outbursts, no tears, just a dull ache, a kind of emotional fog that makes everything feel muted or far away. You wake up and wonder why you feel so tired even after sleeping, or why joy feels like a memory instead of something you actually experience now. There are moments when the silence around you feels too loud, or when you sit in traffic or stand in line and feel like you might float away from your own body. Sometimes we are so used to surviving that we forget what it feels like to truly live. And so we don't realize we're suffering because it's been quiet, patient, wearing the face of normalcy. What if suffering isn't loud? What if it isn't dramatic or obvious, but instead hides inside the spaces we ignore, the forced smiles, the overpacked schedules, the nights we can't fall asleep and don't know why? Maybe the first step toward healing is to simply pause and whisper to ourselves, something doesn't feel right, and that's okay to notice. In Buddhism, the word dukkha is often translated as suffering, but its meaning goes deeper than just pain or sadness. It refers to the persistent sense of unsatisfactoriness that runs through much of our human experience. Dukkha can be the sharp sting of heartbreak, but it can also be the quiet feeling that something is always just a little off, a little incomplete, like a smile that doesn't quite reach your eyes, or a life that looks full on the outside but feels hollow within. It shows up in the stress of trying to control what cannot be controlled, in the fear of change, in clinging to what we know won't last. We don't need to be in crisis to be suffering. Sometimes suffering is simply the tension in our shoulders we've stopped noticing, or the way our breath never seems to go deep enough. The Buddha didn't teach that life is only pain. he taught that suffering arises when we resist the natural flow of life. When we expect permanence in a world that is always changing, recognizing this is not meant to make us feel helpless, it's meant to help us wake up. When we acknowledge that this restlessness, this weariness, this constant reaching for something more is dukkha, we open the door to understanding. We stop blaming ourselves for feeling broken and start seeing that this is part of the human condition. And from that awareness, healing can begin. We can soften. We can breathe again. The simple act of recognizing that we are not at ease is already the beginning of freedom. Because once we see our suffering clearly, without shame or resistance, we are no longer fully trapped in it. To name our pain gently, with compassion, is to take the first step toward letting it go. Imagine for a moment that you are a still lake, tucked deep within a forest, quiet and untouched. But beneath the surface, waves have been stirring for so long that you no longer notice the motion, the constant swirling beneath. You've grown so used to the turbulence that it feels like your natural state. The surface may seem calm to others, even to yourself on some day, but below, currents push and pull, shaping your every moment. It's only when the winds begin to settle, when the ripples slow and the light softens, that you start to see clearly. And for the first time in a long while, the bottom of the lake reveals itself layers of forgotten emotions, old wounds, silent struggles, all resting gently in the deep. You begin to realize the chaos wasn't coming from the world outside, but from the waters within, asking to be seen, not judged, just noticed. Or picture yourself as a cup, smooth and simple, meant to hold only so much, but drop by drop, more and more is poured in worries, responsibilities, regrets, the weight of things left unsaid, the exhaustion of pretending you're fine and still you try to hold it all, telling yourself this is what life demands, until one day the cup overflows, not with a dramatic crash, but with a quiet spill, unnoticed by others, maybe even by yourself. The water drips down your hands, leaving a trail you don't quite understand. And you wonder why everything feels too much, too heavy, too fragile. And then something pauses inside you. A breath, a small stillness. You set the cup down. You stop pouring, and you watch as the overflow slowly begins to dry, as the cup settles into its own shape again. In Zen practice, we learn not to fear this moment, but to meet it with presence. Suffering often hides beneath movement or constant doing, striving, distracting, and when we finally become still, the truth gently rises. not to hurt us, but to offer clarity. So let yourself be the lake returning to calm, the cup resting empty for a while. Notice the weight you've carried without realizing. Feel the ache that's been speaking in whispers. This is not a failure. It is the beginning of seeing. And once you see clearly, you can begin to care for yourself differently. Not by fixing or fighting, but by simply being with what is. Let the waves settle. Let the water be still. Let yourself see what's been waiting quietly beneath. Throughout your day, there are quiet moments, simple, ordinary pauses where you can begin to check in with yourself. Gently, without pressure or expectation. Maybe you're sitting in traffic, your hands gripping the wheel a little tighter than they need to. Your jaw clenched without realizing. What would it feel like to loosen your grip? Just a little. And ask yourself softly, am I tired? Am I holding more than I need to? Or maybe it's late at night and you can't sleep. Your mind replaying the same thoughts, looping through worries you can't solve right now, instead of fighting it. What if you simply placed a hand over your chest and asked, what am I carrying tonight? Even while washing dishes, standing over warm water and the sound of running tap, you might notice your breath shallow, hurried, and pause to ask, have I been rushing through this whole day without pausing once to feel? You don't have to fix anything in these moments. You don't have to have the answers. Just notice. Notice if you're pushing yourself to appear fine when you're not. If you're telling yourself to be strong when what you really need is rest. Notice the tightness in your chest, the heaviness behind your eyes. The way you keep saying, I'm okay, without checking if it's true. These small, quiet acts of self-awareness are not small at all. They are the beginning of healing. It's not about dramatic change or grand solutions. It's about learning to listen. Gently, patiently, without judgment. Maybe this evening, instead of reaching for your phone or distracting yourself, you sit for just a moment with your own heart and ask, what is it like to be me right now? That's enough. That's more than enough. In Zen, presence is a kind of compassion. When we stop to notice our suffering, however quiet, however hidden, we begin to soften the grip it has on us. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whether you feel broken or just a little off, pause, breathe, be here with yourself. You don't have to fix it tonight. Just notice. And in that noticing, something inside you may begin to exhale. Mark was a 42-year-old entrepreneur who once lived in the center of motion, surrounded by success, praised, in the steady rhythm of progress. He had built his company from the ground up, poured every waking moment into it, sacrifice time, sleep, and even friendships for it. And when the day finally came, when the deal was signed and the money arrived, he thought the quiet that followed would be peace. But it wasn't peace. It was silence, and something colder hiding beneath it. Now, he lives alone in a luxury apartment high above the city, with glass walls and soft lighting, automated everything, and too much space for one man. Every morning, the sunlight spilled through the tall windows, warming the polished floors. But it brought no warmth inside him. He would lie in bed longer than he used to, staring at the ceiling, listening to nothing. No meetings, no deadlines, no pressure, just stillness. And the question he could no longer ignore: what now? He made coffee just for the ritual of it, ate fruit from perfect bowls, took long showers, but none of it felt real anymore. The emails that once demanded his attention had slowed to a trickle. The calls stopped. The world had moved on, and so had his identity. He was no longer the founder, no longer the leader, just Mark. And he didn't know who that was. The people around him still congratulated him. Old colleagues sent messages like "living the dream" or "you made it." But he didn't feel like he had made anything at all. In fact, something inside him felt like it was slowly crumbling. He had always imagined freedom would feel like lightness. Instead, it felt like floating without an anchor, like drifting in a sea where the horizon kept pulling further away. Some nights, he stayed up until dawn, staring out at the city lights below, wondering if he had spent years climbing a ladder only to find it leaned against the wrong wall. He tried to distract himself with travel plans, fine dining, even dating again. But everything felt like noise layered over silence. No matter how full his calendar looked, he still felt empty. And that emptiness was no longer just a feeling. It was a weight. There were moments quiet, in between moments, when the truth whispered to him, "You don't know what you're doing anymore." He didn't say this out loud. He smiled when others asked how things were. He kept moving, even if there was nowhere to go. But beneath the surface, the ache was constant. Not sadness exactly, not depression, just a hollow kind of questioning. A gentle ache that followed him from room to room. And deep down, he began to sense maybe the success he chased wasn't the answer. Maybe he had built something great, but never built a place inside himself to rest. Maybe what he was missing couldn't be found in the next goal, or the next win, or even the next chapter. Maybe it was time to stop searching outward. Maybe the direction he needed to go had always been inward. One quiet afternoon, when the walls of his apartment felt too clean and the silence too sharp, Mark decided to go for a drive. He didn't plan where to go. He just kept steering away from the tall buildings, from the busyness, from everything that once defined him. The city slowly gave way to open fields, winding roads, and trees that didn't rush to grow. He stopped near a small, peaceful village nestled against the edge of a hill. The air was cooler there, soft and still. There was nothing extraordinary about the place, but something in its slowness called to him. He wandered along a narrow path behind a wooden fence and noticed a man sitting cross-legged on a cushion in a quiet courtyard. The man was old, with silver hair tied loosely behind his head and hands worn from years of gentle labor. In front of him sat a single bonsai tree, its roots wrapped delicately, its branches shaped with care. The old man moved with intention, trimming a tiny branch with a small pair of shears. Then pausing to simply look, Mark stood there for a moment, unsure if he should speak. But the old man looked up and smiled, as if he had been expecting him. Mark gave a polite nod and said something about the tree looking beautiful. The man chuckled softly, his eyes crinkling. "It's not trying to be beautiful," he said. "It's just being what it is." They sat together in silence for a while. Mark didn't know why he stayed. Maybe it was the breeze, or the way the sunlight rested gently on the old wood, or maybe he was just tired of running. Eventually, he said, "I used to be someone important. I sold my company last year. Everyone says I should be happy, but I don't know what I'm doing anymore." The old man nodded slowly, still looking at the tree. "Many people climb mountains," he said, "but forget to look around when they reach the top. They expect the view to give them meaning, but meaning doesn't always live up there." Mark didn't speak. He didn't know what to say, but something about those words settled into his chest like warm tea. The old man lifted the tiny tree and held it gently between his hands. "This tree doesn't grow tall," he whispered. "It doesn't try to rise above the others. It just stays close to its roots. A tree does not need to grow taller to see the sun. It only needs to stand still, and then it will see the light in the silence." Mark watched the way the man touched the soil, as if it were sacred. No noise, no rut, no striving. The contrast was sharp. Mark had spent decades reaching higher, faster, louder, and here was a man with almost nothing, living in a modest hut, hands dirty with earth, eyes full of peace. He didn't have the answers Mark thought he needed, but somehow, just being near him made Mark feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. Safe. The sun began to lower, casting golden light on the leaves above them. The old man didn't ask about Mark's past. He didn't offer advice, just presence. just space. And as Mark sat there, breathing in the soft air and the quiet between words, something inside him loosened. Not solved, not healed, just softened. And maybe that was enough for now. Days passed, and Mark found himself returning to the quiet garden more often than he expected. At first, he told himself it was curiosity, or maybe boredom. But deep down, he knew it was something else. There was a stillness there, a kind of peace that didn't ask for anything in return. The old man, with his slow movements and silent wisdom, never pressured him to talk. He simply continued his daily care of the bonsai trimming, watering, watching, waiting. Mark would sit nearby, sometimes in conversation, sometimes in silence, and just observe. Something about the rhythm of it, the way the man lived without rush, without the need to prove, began to soften the noise in Mark's head. He started to see how different this was from everything he had known. In the world he came from, every second had a price. Every decision had to be efficient, strategic, measurable. But here, things unfolded at their own pace. The bonsai didn't grow to impress anyone. It didn't chase after sunlight. It simply received what was given. And that was enough. Mark began to question what he had spent his life chasing. He remembered the boardrooms, the constant stress, the endless nights staring at profit reports and market trends. Back then, he thought it was for a purpose. Now, it felt more like survival. He had believed that success would one day bring stillness, but it hadn't. It had only made the emptiness quieter and more confusing. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped low behind the trees, the old man placed his shears down and looked toward Mark. His voice was soft, like leaves brushing the ground. When there is nothing left to reach for, he said, "That is when we begin to truly live." The words moved through Mark like wind through an open window. Not dramatic, not heavy, just honest. He didn't respond right away. He let the words settle. Like water, finding stillness after a long pour. He watched as the man tied a loose thread of the bonsai's root, careful not to force it, only guiding it. Mark realized how differently he had treated life. He had pulled, pushed, climbed. Everything was about control, about shaping the future to his will. But what if? What if the most important parts of life couldn't be forced? What if peace came not from achieving, but from allowing? A memory came to him then. Years ago, someone had given him a book by Thich Nhat Hanh, and he had never read it. But one phrase returned now, as if from a place beyond thought. Live as if you have already arrived. The words felt like a soft bell ringing in the distance. Not an answer, but an invitation. For the first time in a long while, Mark didn't feel the need to plan his next move. He didn't need to define himself. He didn't need to become anything. He simply sat there, next to an old man and a small tree, breathing. And in that moment, something within him began to shift. It wasn't a sudden awakening or a grand realization, just a quiet sense that maybe he didn't need more time, more success, or more clarity. Maybe he just needed to be here. And that was the beginning of something new. Now close your eyes and take a slow breath in. Then let it gently go. Allow yourself to land softly in this moment. No roles to play. No names to carry. Nothing to become. Just you. Just breath. Just now. You've been holding so much. Expectations. Titles. Stories of who you were, who you should be. But right now, you don't need any of that. Right now, you are enough as you are. Allow all those layers to gently fall away, like leaves in early autumn. They were part of your journey, but they are not you. Now, with your eyes closed and breath slow, imagine you are a small bonsai tree, rooted deeply into rich, moist soil. The morning air is cool and gentle. Mist surrounds you, soft like a blanket. You are not trying to grow, not rushing upward. You are just being, breathing. Your roots reach down, steady and calm. And your branches rest in stillness. No need to impress. No need to compete. The sun finds you anyway, even here, even small, even quiet. Feel the way the light touches your leaves. Warm, slow, patient. There is no pressure, only presence. Now, bring your attention gently to your thoughts, without needing to fix or change them. Just notice. Are there thoughts pulling you away from stillness? Thoughts of yesterday or tomorrow, of success or failure, of not doing enough. Let them float by like clouds in the sky. Nothing to hold on to. You are not your thoughts. You are the space beneath them. Wide, open, free. Now return gently to your body. Notice where it touches the surface beneath you. Your back, your legs, your feet. Feel the ground holding you. Steady, silent, unshaken. Relax your shoulders. Let them drop. Soften your jaw, your belly, your hands. You don't need to carry anything right now. Take a slow, Steady breath in and out. Again. Inhale gently and exhale without effort. With each breath, you are coming home to yourself. Not the self shaped by achievement or titles, but the self that simply is. Now silently say to yourself, I do not need to rise higher to be whole. I can grow inward, quietly, and that is enough. I allow myself to pause, to breathe, to belong. There is nothing I need to fix tonight. There is nowhere I must arrive to be at peace. Let these words settle into your heart like morning dew on fresh leaves. No force, just presence. And now, as you feel your breath slow and soften even more, know that it's safe to rest. There is nothing more to figure out right now. You can release the mind. Let it wander like mist into the trees. You are rooted. You are held. You can let go. Sleep will come gently, like the quiet footsteps of dawn. You don't have to chase it. Just breathe. And be. You've already arrived. Time moved on. But something inside Mark had quietly shifted. He no longer owned a company. He no longer checked the markets each morning or measured his worth by how full his calendar was. The city lights that once pulled him into late-night meetings now felt distant, almost like a dream that belonged to someone else. These days, his mornings began slowly, with a cup of tea held warmly between his hands. The soft sound of leaves rustling outside, and the gentle breath of a world that no longer asked him to prove anything. He still lived simply near the village. The apartment was gone. The constant noise was gone. The need to hurry gone. In their place were small things. Earth under his nails. Quiet conversations with the old man. Long walks where the only sound was his own footsteps and the wind through the trees. And in the center of it all, a bonsai tree of his own, which he now cared for with the same quiet attention he once gave to deadlines and deals. Only now, there was no pressure, no outcome to reach. Just the moment, just presence. Mark didn't become someone new. He simply became someone real. Someone who didn't need to rise higher to feel whole. He had once spent years building something big, but now he was learning how to grow something small and steady and true. For the first time in his adult life, he felt rooted, not in success, not in status, but in being. He still had moments of doubt. The mind, after all, remembers its old rhythms. Sometimes it whispered, "You're wasting time." Sometimes it asked, "What if you never build again?" But now, instead of fighting those thoughts, he just let them pass, like wind through an open window, like clouds that didn't stay. He had learned not to chase the silence, but to sit with it. There were days when he would sit beside the tree, eyes closed, hands resting on his knees, feeling the sun on his skin. He didn't try to meditate. He just breathed. Slowly, softly, without needing anything more than that moment. And often, that was where peace found him. One evening, as he poured water gently into the soil and watched the roots drink slowly, he smiled. Not because something amazing had happened, not because he had found the answer, but because he no longer needed one. He had stopped running. He had stopped reaching. And in doing so, he had arrived. He no longer needed to become someone else. He no longer needed to impress anyone, not even himself. Now, it was enough to wake up, to breathe, to care for something living, to listen when someone spoke, to be quiet when there were no words. And maybe that's what it means to truly live. So now, dear listener, as the story comes to rest like dust settling in a quiet room, ask yourself gently, can you let go of who you thought you had to be just for tonight? Can you breathe without needing to become? Because maybe, just maybe, you've already arrived. Sometimes, pain doesn't arrive with a clear name. You find yourself snapping at someone you love over something small, or lying awake at night, heavy with a sadness you can't quite explain. There are moments when your chest feels tight, or your thoughts start racing, and yet, you don't know why. You tell yourself to calm down, to let it go, to move on. But something deep inside resists. You're not just tired. You're tangled. And that makes all the difference. You begin to notice patterns. Maybe you always feel anxious in certain situations, or guilty when resting, or angry when someone doesn't listen. But when you stop and ask yourself why, there is only silence. And in that silence, a quiet ache begins to surface, knowing that something is buried deeper than your conscious thoughts. A wound, perhaps, a memory, a fear. That's when a gentle question begins to arise. Where is this coming from? Not to judge, not to blame, but to understand. Because sometimes healing begins not with fixing, but with noticing, not with rushing forward, but with turning inward. And when we dare to ask that question, even softly, we begin to see that our pain has roots, and those roots are waiting to be understood. When we begin to wonder where our suffering comes from, a doorway gently opens. We step into a space of honesty, and perhaps, for the first time, we stop trying to push the pain away. We sit with it. We look at it. And slowly, we begin to see that our hurt doesn't just come from what happened yesterday. It has been growing for a long time. Sometimes we suffer because we misunderstand the world. We believe that we need to always be strong, always be right, always be in control. We carry ideas about who we should be. And when life doesn't match those ideas, we feel lost or broken. That's the confusion that clouds our view. We're not bad. We're just not seeing clearly. Other times, our suffering grows from the things we chase. We think, if I just get this job, this love, this peace, then I'll be okay. And we run after it, over and over. But even when we reach it, the peace doesn't last. We feel empty again. So we chase more. And there are moments when we suffer because we push things away. A memory, a feeling, a person, anything that makes us uncomfortable. We try to avoid. But running doesn't free us. It only keeps the pain alive under the surface. So when we begin to see all this, not with shame, but with care, we begin to understand. And that understanding is where healing begins. Because when we know what hurts us, we can finally begin to hold it, soften it, and let it go. And now, let us gently turn inward. Through the quiet doorway of imagination, picture yourself walking into a quiet garden. The air is soft. The light is warm. All around you are tall trees, some twisted, some still growing, some standing strong. You don't know who planted them or when, but you can feel that they have been here for a long time. You kneel down on the earth beside one of them. The soil is dark and moist beneath your hands. You brush away a few fallen leaves and begin to gently dig. At first, it seemed like nothing, just dirt, soft and still. But slowly, you see it, a small root stretching beneath the surface. You follow it with your fingers and find another and another. Some are healthy and alive. Others are tangled, dry, and brittle. Some are buried so deep you can barely reach them. You pause. You breathe. You realize these trees did not grow from nowhere. Each one began as a seed, planted long ago. Some seeds of fear, some love, some of the pain never spoken, some of longing never named. And now, the sun is rising. The light touches your shoulder, then the ground. It glows through the leaves and slowly warms the roots. You don't have to rip them out. Just seeing them is enough for now. Just noticing, just allowing the light in. Because sometimes healing begins not with changing the garden, but by seeing what's already there with gentle eyes. And now, let's return to the quiet moments of your everyday life. Think back to a recent moment when something small made you feel unusually upset. Maybe someone said something that stung more than it should have. Maybe you found yourself suddenly angry or deeply hurt over a situation that didn't seem that serious. It's okay. We've all been there. Sometimes, what we feel in the present is not just about what's happening now. It's about something older, something deeper. Take a slow breath. Then, gently invite yourself to reflect. Is there a pattern? Do certain words or tones trigger you more than others? Is there a fear, a memory, or a wound you might still be carrying? Quietly, silently, beneath the surface. You don't have to figure everything out right now. But maybe, just for tonight, you can try this small practice. Take a piece of paper and write down one thing that made you feel unsettled today. Just one. And then ask yourself gently, is this really about now, or is it about before? Sometimes, what looks like an overreaction is actually an old pain knocking on the door. Not to hurt us again, but to ask, can you finally see me? Can you be with me now? This is how understanding begins. Not with judgment, not with fixing, but with noticing, with kindness, with space. Let that be enough, just for now. And now, as we near the end of this quiet journey together, take a soft breath and feel the space we've gently opened inside. Tonight, we walked through the tender teachings of letting go, not as an escape, but as an embrace. We began by recognizing suffering, learning that pain is not a sign of failure, but a part of being human. Then we explored the roots beneath it, the old stories, the quiet fears, the tangled expectations we've carried for too long. With compassion, we were invited to respond differently, not with blame or resistance, but with kindness and care. We practiced loosening our grip, not to abandon life, but to return to it with more ease, more truth, more love. Each step, each story, each breath has reminded us that letting go is not giving up. It is opening our hands, our hearts, to what is real. It is choosing to stop carrying what was never ours to hold. And through it all, one message has echoed softly. Be gentle. Be gentle with your thoughts. Be gentle with your past. Be gentle with the parts of you still learning how to soften. This world is already heavy. You don't have to carry it alone. So let your final breath tonight be a whisper of compassion, not only for others, but for yourself. You are doing the best you can. You are growing in ways that no one else sees. And even in the midst of pain, you are healing. Slowly, quietly, truly. Let this night be a place of rest. Let your heart feel safe to release. Let go and trust that who you are in this very breath is already enough. Good night, and may you be held in peace. As you rest here now, with your body growing still and the night folding gently around you, let us enter this final space together, a place where nothing needs to be done, where nothing needs to be fixed, where your only task is to be. You have listened with an open heart. You have walked with quiet honesty through ideas that may take time to settle. And now, there is no pressure to hold on, only an invitation to soften, to release. Tonight is not about effort. It is about allowing what you feel, allowing what you carry, allowing the truth that you don't need to carry it alone. So gently, come home to this moment. Begin by noticing your breath, the slow tide of your own body moving without force. Inhale slowly and exhale gently. Again, let the breath meet you exactly where you are, no matter how heavy or light, no matter how quiet or restless. Just breathe. Now, let's imagine a still lake at twilight. The surface is calm, the light dim and kind, and you are sitting at the edge with your hands open on your knees, in your palms. You're holding something that has weighed on you for some time. Maybe a memory, a worry, a regret. And in this soft moment, you are not being asked to throw it away, only to loosen your grip, only to notice how it feels when you let your hands open just a little. Imagine setting it down beside you on the grass and watching it rest. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet release. As you sit here, thoughts may still come, some soft, some sharp, some loud, and that's okay. Don't chase them. Don't push them away. Just notice. You can say gently to each thought, I see you, and I let you pass. Again, I see you, and I let you pass. There is no need to argue with the mind. Just breathe. Now, gently bring your attention to your body. Feel the weight of your head resting on the pillow. Notice your shoulders and let them soften. Let the chest rise and fall, and the belly rest. Feel your arms growing heavier, your legs sinking into the surface beneath you. There is no wrong way to relax. Simply notice how the body responds when you give it permission to rest. You are safe here. You are allowed to rest. Let your body tell the truth. even if your mind is still catching up. And now, repeat softly within yourself. I release what I cannot control. I forgive what no longer serves me. I offer myself patience. I offer myself peace. I do not need to understand everything tonight. I only need to let go and begin again, over and over. I begin again as you sink deeper into rest. Let go of needing to think. Let go of needing to analyze or explain. Let the stories quiet. Let the images fade. This is the space where you don't have to try. The place where the heart and body are enough. You are enough. You are enough. So rest now, without effort, without expectation. Good night, dear soul. May the silence hold you gently. May you feel light again. Not all at once, but breath by breath. Let sleep find you like a soft wave. Let go and be free.